Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the No Faces Comic Chat. I am your host, BUB'S Comics. And with me, as always, waiting in the wings, haven't even talked to the poor guy backstage. Let's say hello to DS Comics. Welcome.
What is up?
There it is. There's the pop we like. Oh, A&W root beer this time. Look at you go. Not even any caffeine in that, is there?
No caffeine, no sugar, just chemicals.
Wow. Can't beat that unless you try. And then next we have with us as always as well. That's the one. We have the great Roger.
Well, greetings everyone. We got like no preview here. We just went live.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a sign that Bub is running late.
So just so you know, Bub doesn't run late. Bub walks late because he's a cool cat.
So hi Bub, hi DS. Great to see you guys after my 2-week hiatus here.
Likewise, awesome to be back on the show here. I don't know what happened last week. I couldn't tell if you were being serious or not about the animal chewing the wires, but it was 50-50, so I'll buy it.
You never know with Bub.
Right, but that was like, it was 50-50. Is it true or is it not with him and that situation? Like so many factors, it's 50-50. I don't even know.
Well, we'll just leave you in a state of suspense and disbelief. With us, generally, we have Unruly Simeon say hello. We've got Jambo Comics here as well. Area 51, V Squared in the house. Go ahead, Roger.
Varangian Vigilante.
Oh, man, it doesn't get any better than that.
No,
from Heroes to Icon is here also. Thank you, everyone, for being here. James Gallegos in the house. Ruben Guzman with the obligatory Cowabunga fam. He's become famous for this. Let's. All right, what else we got? I think that's everybody so far.
I think Matt and John are doing comigories. I don't know if it started at 8:30 or 9.
I think it starts at 9.
Out either way.
Yeah, I think it starts at 9.
Yeah, and that's a super popular show, which, I don't blame. That's an awesome show. Ours is a niche show, and we have dedicated people here that I see regardless. So we appreciate everyone who is here.
Yes, thank you to all of you who are here. And even to all of you who may leave. We're good with that too. I don't think we'll be able to cut it so short as to where it's only a 20-minute show because Roger will probably shout out the chat at some point, and that takes about 17 minutes.
Well, I'm not on comigories, and I don't think either of you are, so we can go. I mean, I'm not. This is more important than anything else going on in my life right now. So
you guys on YouTube. Good point. Good point, DS. Most important thing on YouTube ever is right.
I wouldn't go that far, but it's the most important thing right now. I mean, I haven't really dug deep. There's probably some cool stuff, but let's just leave it at that.
Let's start off with talking about Roger's new Satoop, which is just, how is he doing this? Look at this. This is nice.
I'm trying to find an angle where the glare doesn't absolutely just dominate it,
Yeah, Bub's going to tell you not to apologize for it, but it's pretty rough.
It's rough. It's rough, but I guess maybe we'll do the old one at a time. Maybe.
If you turn them, I don't know, man. It's just
wow. That's even brighter.
Let's see there. I mean, it's like precarious as it is. So,
do you have your refrigerator door?
Maybe I'll just hold it and flap it down here.
Oh wow!
There.
DS has got it set up. He gets all that dark golden age, and it just kills. It's a glare eater.
I'll tell you honestly, I've thought about doing a video on this, and I don't do videos anymore apparently. But one of the videos I want to do at some point is how to avoid glare, and it's just physics and it's just angles. And I'm pretty good at avoiding glare. Like, I can get glare on this if I.
Oh my gosh.
But I have the light and the comic at an angle where it minimizes the glare and it's virtually non-existent. Tougher on slabs, but it can be done. It's physics and it's angles, and you just got to be. It's not obvious until you sort of hear a description of it or. And then you're like, oh yeah, of course that makes sense. But it's not necessarily obvious or just intuitive. You got to sort of figure it out. And I spent a lot of time on it because I photograph a lot of slabs. That's where I sort of formulated all of it. So
Well, that sounds good. Well, I look forward to that video if and when it ever comes out.
yeah.
And we have, let's see, we got Slim's. I saw Slim in there. Slim Comics and More is here. Anybody else sneak in under the wire? We got Crazy Guy Comic Song 2 Crazy. Angle is key, he says. We assume he's talking about glare on books. All right, let's see. Now we have, oh, look, William Smallwood is here as well. People are just trickling in here. Speaking of trickles, does anyone remember what what our team name is for this evening? We're going to go with Roger.
Let's see. It was the Underpowered Dominators.
That's right.
Oh, I was going to say Powder Puff Dominion. I guess I would have been wrong.
You would have been wrong, but you would have been close.
I would have been close.
So here's my question to you, fine fellows. When you read that, what did you like without knowing the topic? What came to mind to you? Like, how did you read that?
Superheroes that are always getting beat up. I thought of Spider-Man.
Okay, fair enough. What about you, Roger?
Yeah, I thought of not Spider-Man, but I thought of heroes that that used either equipment or had other kinds of kind of angles to fighting crime other than actually having superhuman abilities.
Yep. So my son, he asks me every Monday, he says, what's the team name tonight? Right? He always wants to know. And so I told him today we were the Underpowered Dominators. He was like, cool, you guys are beating up on people that have no powers. Like, like we're out there dominating the weak,
Oh man.
Oh, so yeah, it could go either way.
I hadn't thought of it that way. I said, wow, that's a different way to look at it. I'm good with that.
That is called that's called a semantic ambiguity, and newspapers are notorious for it because they omit a lot of words when they do headlines. And it's called a semantic ambiguity where it can be read both ways.
Let me tell you something. It's called muckraking where I come from there, buddy.
All right, well, I'll remember that next time in Kentucky.
I am from Kentucky. I just sound like I is. Boy, Crazy Guy Comic Song 2 Crazy. He had a pretty good video today where he showed his arsenal to protect against the den of thieves he's found himself in. So if you haven't had a chance to check out his most recent video, I highly recommend it. There you go. It was pretty good. It had everything I like. I was like, I wonder if he was like watching my last video where I talked about it. He had guns, comics, and guitars. I was like, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you and him could get together and do a live stream on those stuff.
I mean, everything I've spent more than $100 on a single item on in the last month was either a gun, a comic, or a guitar. So, yeah, you got me. I'm hooked, man. So, but Roger did have the vein. He was tapped into the vein on this one. We're talking about just in general, and doesn't have to be exact, although I look forward to all the nuance I'm sure Roger will bring to the table. And then we'll wake DS up for his portion. But
wow.
Basically,
it's great to be back.
Yeah, we missed you. We missed you with every brick. So we had the idea is, heroes specifically, because I know there's, if you talk about villains, I feel like there is a good group of villains who do not have any superpowers but are still like super geniuses, that kind of thing, evil geniuses, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk specifically about heroes that don't have any natural superpowers. So, of course, the first one that comes up to everybody's mind, I'm going to let DS take this floater. Go ahead, DS. Who would you say is the absolute most popular and probably most favoritist of those out there that does not have that is a hero that does not have superpowers?
Well, top of the list obviously is Batman. He is number one on the list right there. Yeah, I came prepared to say the obvious, which is Batman, and then I'll make an argument for Superman later. But yeah, Batman's top of the list, and it's always cool to have a hero that doesn't have any special powers other than he's like clever and witty and smart and sly and has systems and mechanics and tools and can beat super hyper powerful villains just with sort of know-how. It's sort of like a MacGyver superhero, and Batman is the epitome of that. He's got that, and then he's also got he's got a real dark sort of creepy style that dates back to his origins, and it just makes for a cool character, and that's why he's so popular. And yeah, it doesn't have any superpowers. It's just loaded and smart.
Yeah, and the detective aspect is really, I feel like, underplayed in other media like movies and such. But a lot of the comics has got a lot of detective work. There's usually, at least earlier on, there would be like some sort of crime, right? And he would battle the crime, or the villain would almost naturally escape or get away in some way before he got there. Then he would solve the crime, as far as the who, what, when, hows, and wheres, and all that good stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then that leads to a showdown with the bad guy in the end. So definitely a lot of story to Batman, not just action packed from start to finish, because you couldn't have him in a super powered battle from cover to cover. He'd be dead after about a week.
Well, and Detective Comics was a crime title. It was essentially a crime mystery noir title. Really before superheroes were en vogue, it was crime stories before World War II. And then, Detective Comics was just that, detective crime comics. And they introduced Batman as a character. They basically did crime stories. He broke up crime rings and beat up gangsters.
Yep.
And they introduced villains. And even the villains early on in the golden age for Batman were just these crazy, insane criminals who were just very adept at criminal affairs, like Joker and Scarecrow and these guys and stuff. And, the Penguin is another one. Yeah, and then after the war and into the Silver Age, when superheroes really became huge, Batman and Robin have a bunch of super villains they're now fighting, and it's become much different. But yeah, initially that's all he was. He was a crime fighter. It was just gritty street crime fighting. That's all it was. And yeah, I really like that aspect of Batman. I don't follow current Batman, but I feel like it doesn't seem like it's stuck to its detective crime roots for much after the 60s. I think there was a short period in the 80s where it was a lot more crime oriented, but most of it after World War II has not really been as crime related, I feel like.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, his detective roots are actually those I think are the most interesting aspects of the character, because he can deduce things, and he can also anticipate things, and those are two talents that make him especially effective, because he can prepare ahead of time for almost any eventuality, and that's what really makes him able to take on these much more powerful foes, because he's prepared. He knows pretty much what they're going to do and how to counter that, and that's a talent that not many have.
Yeah, and I know a lot of like the early detective stories and in the Batman title. I read a lot of those online, and I've had a few pass through my hands, and I'll read them. Nothing, no major keys or anything, but there seems to be a lot of panels and stories in those where Batman and or Robin is lying in wait. They've anticipated where the criminals are going to be, or they found their hideout way ahead of time, and they're back there before the criminals return to the hideout, and they're laying ambushes on criminals. So they're always 2 steps ahead of the criminals. Yeah, it's a very cool aspect. And of course, it comes full circle when you think of Batman's origin and when he was a child, and, it comes full circle. So it's just a really cool loop of an origin story that makes him just an excellent crime fighter.
Well, I think also when you have the, well, first I wanted to ask Metarog then. Metarog, is it safe to assume then that you are a fan of the shark repellent spray as featured in the Batman movie, the original Batman movie? Because he was he knew that shark. He knew he was going to be hanging from a helicopter. He knew there was going to be a shark attack, and he was prepared with his shark repellent spray. Is that safe to say, Roger, you're a fan?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, he's not clairvoyant, but again, he knows every eventuality that could happen, or almost all of them. So he prepares way ahead of time, and including any kind of water man-eating creatures. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, he has such a cool collection of vehicles that he uses too. And really an underplayed thing in comics generally is, you know, the vehicles. We're focused on superheroes a lot, and a lot of them fly or transport themselves other ways or go with a team on the team plane type thing. But Batman, man, he's had everything. He's had cars and planes and helicopters and motorcycles and submarines. And yeah, he's got a whole arsenal of tools and vehicles and his belt and gadgets. He's, you know, the like a dark version of Inspector Gadget that succeeds. Yeah.
I like that
cartoon when I was a kid.
I love it.
And Inspector Gadget together, a deadly combination.
Yeah.
Hey, look what we got here, folks. We got Just a Rican and his comics dropping that big $5. Didn't even take the opportunity to put anything else on there.
Well, we know what he wants. Give the crowd what they want, Bob.
All right, I suppose. Oh my goodness!
Here it comes.
And because it was more than $2, it's the $5 version. You get the Wandering Through the Woods as well. There you go. Congratulations, chat. Thank you to everyone who could make it tonight. Glad that Rod is here supporting the channel. Thank you, Rod. Always a big supporter of community and comic channels, large and especially small. So thank you so much.
Yeah, he's brought attention to hundreds, if not thousands, of channels at this point.
Oh yeah. Oh, it looks like we got Area 51, Silver Age Dave's in the house. We got a few people dropping in here. We did not have prior, so thank you, Rod and Silver and Mike for being here. Jackson Roy Kirk finally walks into the room. It's good to have him. So good to have you guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Yeah, Fonzie could have used that shark repellent. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's part of the allure of Batman for sure, is having all those extra, I don't know what, the premonitions that he's going to need all that stuff. He's darn right clairvoyant, but he makes it all look so good. And another thing that I like about him is that he doesn't shy away from battling, you know, clearly overpowering physical figures. You know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, his rogues gallery has got some real powerful heavy hitters. You're talking about Bane and Clayface and
Killer
Croc. I mean, these guys can crush. You know, they can crush the human skull, kind of thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes right in there toe to toe with him and tries to beat him with his intelligence and his physical abilities. But I mean, as far as pure strength, I mean, he's greatly overpowered often. So good stuff. All right, let's move on. Oh, look at that. Doctor Strange. Now this is interesting. Are you trying to say Doctor Strange has no superpowers?
He doesn't.
All right, you're going to have to. Now look, we already had DS Comics has already agreed that he's going to be trying to pull some Superman shenanigans. He's done let the cat out of that bag. So now we're gonna listen real closely and see if we can figure out how Roger can explain that Doctor Strange is powerless. Let's have it.
He doesn't have any more power than you or I. What he does have is he trained himself and he studied the mystic arts. Notice it says master of the mystic arts, right? Just like a martial art is you train your body, mystic art, you train your soul to commune with these different entities and energies, and they will help you if you know how to use them. But the power is not in him. The power is his ability to summon them, which anybody could do with enough intense study.
Are you buying this, DS?
Well, at first I wasn't, but now I'm not so sure because, there were other guys that have trained with him and fought alongside him,
Yeah.
that also trained and learned, and it wasn't innate in them either.
Notice that he has apprentices.
Yeah.
Teaches the mystic arts to. When they come in, they have no powers. He teaches them how to access those beings and energies, and then all of a sudden they can do things not because it's innate in them, but because they studied these different tomes and these different spells and can summon these other entities to help them. But he was a surgeon, and he was just a regular schmo until he got trained to do what he did. But
to play devil's advocate, I would say he has become a master of using supernatural magic. And by virtue of being a master and able to use the supernatural, he has now removed himself from the general range of human abilities, and he has super abilities. Does he have superpowers? I mean, he's got super abilities. He has an ability that is not common among man to manipulate magic through spells, and he communes with alternate levels of reality, and so that would be the argument that he has sort of superpowers. But Roger makes a good argument. I'm going to side with him, but for devil's advocate, that would be, if I had to argue against it, what I would say. But that's a good argument. I mean, anybody could do what he did, just not a lot of people have.
Let me make a parallel to this. Martial arts. If you look at it, it's the same thing, except this is training the body, right? Notice that Karate Kid can do things none of us can do because he studied this his whole life. He's trained and he's dedicated himself. Same thing with Doctor Strange, but in the mystic arts, not the martial arts. But you're right. None of us can do this because we just don't have the knowledge. We don't have the dedication or the training to do it. But if we did, again, this is all comic book logic here, by the way. But if we did,
no, it's real life. Don't break the illusion, Roger.
Yeah, I'll buy it, Roger. I think you've made a good argument for that. If you have powers that are innate to you that are above what any other human can achieve, then you have superpowers. But if you have just mastered something to such a high level that you are within the top couple people ever in the history of man that can do it, that has attempted to do it and learned it and become a master of it, maybe you don't have superpowers, even though you've reached a pinnacle of what man can achieve. I'll buy it. It's a step closer than Batman, but I think you're still in the circle of non-superpower, I guess. Yeah, I'll buy it. What do you think, Bob?
I think you got to put together all the pieces. So I'm good with saying that he doesn't naturally have any superpowers. Now, I would not have until Roger made his stellar argument. But I would say that it takes, like, there's some argument in the chat about Iron Man, but who else would have been intelligent enough to build the suit? Who else would have been intelligent enough to make it work? So the idea is that a superpower in and of itself? And I say no. Having a high aptitude or having the right mindset or having the exact history that may be required, whether you were born of the League of Assassins or something like that, right? So being in the right place at the right time with the right aptitude is all part of it, and then taking the next step to either enrich yourself or to learn something special or to apply what you already have in a specific way, then I can see how that's what brings the people into the realm of being a hero at all. But it doesn't necessarily make them a superhero. It just puts them in the hero class. So that's fair. So, yeah, I would say that he did not I think you got us on that one, Roger, because I would say Doctor Strange is not technically a superhero. He is just a hero that has fully applied his aptitudes and abilities and has studied to become better. Then, to master that. Yep.
Well, and that brings an interesting question. I think he is a superhero, but I'll agree he doesn't have any superpowers. But
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. I'm with you.
Yeah. Like again, a Joe Schmo, who goes through his life and goes to college and trains in East and here and wants to become even let's say a doctor like he did, wouldn't have this knowledge and this training to do what he does. So he uses his knowledge to gain supernatural abilities through these other entities and these other energies. So yeah, I'd agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And I can see Iron Man on Roger's screen. I was thinking about him, and I think he does have superpowers, and I'll tell you why.
Hold on, before you talk about Roger's Iron Man, we have to acknowledge.
Oh yeah.
Bill, welcome Bill to the chat. Better late than never. So glad to have you. And of course, he's telling us that someone mentioned superpowers, and I will check. Yes. Wait, we're looking. Yes, I think someone did mention superpowers, and we already had a couple of slow runners. But we'll give you a little bit of Wonder Woman pulling together two trucks. How about that? Actually, I think one of them is an Oldsmobile and a Studebaker stuck together with a Wonder Woman. I don't think you can really beat that too hard.
That's pretty good.
So thank you, Bill, for joining us and for donating to the show. You're keeping the candles lit. So, all right, go on. Let's see. Well, we're looking at Roger, but we're listening to DS. Is that right? Okay, go on.
All right, so here's the analogy. Batman, Bruce Wayne has no superpowers, and Batman, when he's Batman as his alter ego, he has no superpowers. Tony Stark has no superpowers. When he's his alter ego, Iron Man, he does have superpowers. He has super strength. He's bulletproof. He's got a hole. He can fly. So I would say Iron Man has superpowers, but Tony Stark doesn't. And you'd be like, well, that's the same thing. Well, it's not, because Bruce Wayne doesn't have superpowers, and neither does Batman. Tony Stark doesn't have superpowers, but Iron Man does. So that, I think Iron Man has superpowers. Yeah, it's Tony Stark in the suit, but he's not walking around the street as Iron Man. He's walking around the street as Tony Stark. When he gets in that suit, he is then Iron Man, and Iron Man clearly has superpowers. It's a suit around a guy, but it's the suit that makes him Iron Man. So I would argue Iron Man does have superpowers, even though Tony Stark doesn't. And it's not one and the same, like Bruce Wayne and Batman, Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Peter Parker has superpowers, the same ones that Spider-Man has. There's a couple additions and changes to the suits over time, but it's not always the same between the character and their alter ego. It's not always the same. So Iron Man, I would say, has superpowers. That's my argument.
I don't know. I think that you need to hire Roger, aka Metarog Esquire, to make that argument for you, because I'm not feeling that one.
All right, let's hear it.
I don't think you need to separate between alter ego and true and the true identity, or what I like to think.
Yeah, but these guys, some of them are the same no matter what. They just put on a costume to protect their identity. And they're essentially the same. Like Peter Parker and Spider-Man, he's just wearing it to protect his identity. It's not, for the most part. I know we can get into the weeds about the suit enhancements over time and whatever, but Peter Parker and Spider-Man, it's the same thing. It's just he's wearing it to protect his identity. Bruce Wayne and Batman, he's wearing it to protect his identity, but he's also got tools. And then you have Iron Man, he's not wearing it to protect his identity. He's wearing it to enhance himself and give him superpowers. So it's for different heroes, it's different what their alter ego does, and I think you have to judge that differently. And that's they're not all wearing the suits and the costumes and fighting villains under the same guise. They're all have their own sort of different ways of doing it. So I would call Iron Man a superhero with superpowers.
Yeah, but if you give me all of the Punisher's guns, I still cannot use them to the effectiveness that he can.
Yeah, but a lot of people can.
Wait, no, they can't. They'd be dead.
Sure.
Not that
yeah, he's
been alive for 63 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but Punisher is the same whether he's the Punisher or Frank Castle walking down to get a coffee at Starbucks. He's the same, but he just shoots a lot of guns. It has a lot of munitions and a lot of training, and he's in great shape. And there's special ops military guys are essentially what Frank Castle is. So Frank Castle's the same. He just carries an arsenal and he gets armed up to go to battle. But he doesn't have superpowers in either of them. Just like Batman and Bruce Wayne, neither of those have superpowers. Peter Parker has superpowers for both. And then Iron Man only has superpowers when he's in the suit. So that's what I think.
Well, Roger, what do you think? Where are you at on this?
Yeah, I
think it's splitting hairs
on this one, and I'll tell you why. Because the suit is not sentient. It is a tool, essentially, like Batman has his utility belt, except that it's streamlined and it covers his whole body. So, it is a very advanced tool. And you're right that Tony Stark is much better Iron Man than anybody else has been, right? Because he knows the suit, he knows how to use it. He's very much experienced. He's the designer, the creator. So for me, it's hard for me to sort of to not merge those two into one hero. So Tony Stark's honestly is a good parallel to Batman because he's hyper intelligent and has loads of money, and thus he has options to create all kinds of things. And he's created much more than just armor. He's created all sorts of lasers and medical devices and munitions, et cetera, et cetera. So, he is an inventor more than Batman. Batman is more of he uses devices for crime fighting. Iron Man uses it for a higher level, more of a world level. So if making that kind of distinction is the scale of it. But I think when it boils down to it, they both use technology to a great degree. And you're right, Bruce Wayne without the Batman gimmicks is still Bruce Wayne. But with the Batman gimmicks, he's much more effective than if he didn't have it. So, and the same thing with Tony Stark. He's very intelligent. He could probably do a lot without the armor. But with the armor, he's, just uber Tony.
Yeah,
So,
and the armor is like an extension of him because the AI, and I'm talking with traditional, I know Area 51 mentioned Cosmic Ghost Rider. That's true. I mean, that changes the whole thing about Frank Castle. But we don't stray too much into the moderns. I definitely don't because I just don't know anything about them. But, he is the one who is intuitively synced with the AI that runs the suit and everything he has, and nobody else can get in that suit and even turn it on. So he's the only one that can do the suit. He also has part of his body has been modified, and he's had technology attached directly to himself that it doesn't give him superpowers, but
no, that's good.
Yeah, he's like intimately linked to the suit and the technology that he uses. That it's not anybody could do that, like Roger's saying. So those are other reasons I would begrudgingly say that Iron Man has superpowers.
Yeah. All right.
Tough argument, but it applies.
I will say that it does not follow for all. I think it's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, again, the guns don't make Frank Castle, don't give him superpowers. His ability to use them effectively is fantastic and awe-inspiring, but it doesn't give him the superpowers. And I think, yes, Iron Man is linked to his suit in a unique way. But, you said that he uses it better than anybody else, but don't they have that new girl, the rerun or whatever her name is?
Riri Williams?
Rerun Dynamite. What's her name?
Riri Williams?
Riri.
Terrible name. Terrible name.
Like I said, though, we don't stray too much into the moderns.
Yeah, I don't know too much about her, yeah.
But I think Tony Stark is in a coma, and he is now the AI. And she, from what I understand the origin, she kind of stole the technology and is using it without permission. But Tony Stark is now the AI inside it of the suit that she's using, that she stole from Stark Industries. I don't know. I know very little about it.
I know even less. So you're amongst friends. I'll bring up, since we're talking about gun wielders, I've got two of my favorites. We got Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, and her gender opposite, James Bond here. I think, there's something to be said about special skill sets that either of them may have that makes them the top of their field. But it doesn't necessarily give them superpowers, and it definitely doesn't mean that they're superhuman in any way. They're just the best at what they do, and you just take that at face value, and then you never know what they'll come up against. I think one of my favorite things about heroes like this is that a simple thing like a car crash or a plane crash can take them out, although it doesn't. Because
James Bond has been in ton of both.
Exactly. So is Tomb Raider. They crash stuff all the time, and yet they survive. I have to say, and this is one of my gripes with the Batman movies specifically, is that in every Batman movie thus far, they have placed him in some sort of armored suit to where if he gets shot, he's protected. And I always felt like one of the best motivations for Batman as a vigilante was to not care if he died for the most part. He put his life on the line on purpose. You know, he really had so much going on emotionally and mentally that he was just prepared at all times that, okay, if I go out, I go out, but I'm going to throw myself out there in what's akin to a pair of pajamas and some shark spray and just have at it. You know, that there's a bit of a daredevil in him. So, you know, but in the movies, they always put Batman as some sort of rubber putty that's bulletproof or armor or whatever. And although that may make it more realistic, I don't like that portrayal of Batman because it almost gives him that next level of, he's not superhuman, but now he's bulletproof. You know, he's 90% bulletproof. Well, that's something, you know. You know?
Oh, yeah, I like that though. I mean, if in today's day and age, you would not have Bruce Wayne going out to fight crime without high-tech bulletproof materials. That didn't exist when Batman was created, but yeah, I mean that it's perfect common sense now that a guy like that would have that kind of stuff. And we're getting some good education here about Riri Williams. Obviously, I told you I don't know what I'm talking about, but Area 51 and Slim Comics and more both threw in some good knowledge there about Riri.
I didn't know she was 14.
Yeah, she's a 14-year-old genius. She built her own suit using Tony's tech, apparently. So, yeah, I don't know. Perhaps a similar thing. I might have to look into it, but I might say that she has superpowers too. Then, if it's the same symbiosis and intimate relationship with the suit that Tony had with his.
Wow. I don't know. We'll leave Batman alone for a while for sure, and Iron Man and any gun wielders. But there have been talk about some arrow slingers.
Yeah.
And let's see, who do we have here? Oh, Nick Fury. See, that was one I was going to bring up too. Tell us about good. Of course, you know, very similar to James Bond. So
yeah,
tell us what you got going on there, buddy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That essentially it's Marvel's answer maybe to James Bond. He runs a super secret, except, you know, James Bond works for a secret spy organization. You know, Fury kind of got transformed from a war hero to the leader of a super secret spy organization, and, you know, more than that, more like world protectors. Now there is, I use him, but there was, I don't know if it's canon anymore, but there was a story arc in which explained why he was still so young, even though he was in World War II.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's because he took, and again, it still doesn't make him super, but he took this serum called, I believe it was called the Infinity Formula, which essentially stopped his aging in the 60s or something like that. So is that a superpower, to stop aging?
I say hell yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
got Iron Man, you got Captain America. I mean, super serum, right? I mean, that's got to count. You got the Hulk, you know, if not for the gamma rays, right? That's got to count. It's got to count.
Right, but this is kind of artificially. It's an artificial way of getting a superpower, and he needs to keep taking it in order for it to continue.
Yeah, but I think that counts because I'm not too concerned how they get the superpowers. It's sort of like, this is the argument I had with people during the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire home run situation. And everybody's like, well, they're using steroids as performance enhancing. It's not performance enhancing. It just helps your muscles heal faster. And when they're actually out there at bat hitting the home run, they're doing it with their own muscle fibers. They just have been able to build much more of it much faster by taking substances. But it's not really enhancing their performance, because once they're out there on the field performing, they're using their own body and their own muscles. They're not using anything artificial to perform, but they're using an artificial sort of serum to get that way. So I'm not so concerned. And, that's the thing. If they're not using it while they're on the field, it's not enhancing their performance, but it's still not fair. And that's the thing. If you're taking a serum that gives you the powers, you still get credit for the powers, whether you're born with them or you need to take a serum every day to maintain them. For me, the superpowers are the superpowers. And nobody cared that McGuire and Sosa weren't shooting steroids on the field. The fact that they took them prior was no good. They were counted as having superpowers on the field. I argued that while illegal, it's not technically poor performance enhancing, because wasn't doing anything on the field while they were performing. It just helped them build a bunch more muscles much more quickly, so that when they got on the field, they had more of their own stuff to work with. Sort of a semantic argument, but interesting way to think about it when it comes to born with superpowers or taking the serum every day to have the superpowers. For me, it's the same. You either have superpowers or you don't. I don't really care how you got them.
Okay, I'm down with that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I agree with the baseball part, but I agree with your overall point there. I think when I see, Barry Bonds' head go from the size of a softball to the size of a basketball, that's when I start having a little bit of there may be some residual effects of that have carried on to the field.
Well, and the other thing I brought up during that whole baseball thing was, they're complaining about McGuire and Sosa and Barry Bonds, all these guys using steroids on the workout side of it, but not technically on the field. They're using their own muscles and stuff on the field. But in the bullpen, everybody's chewing nicotine and drinking caffeine and using actual substances during the game to keep them more alert and awake. That's far more performance enhancing than using steroids for your workouts. I usually make these arguments not to convince people that I'm right, but to instigate thought on it, to have people think about things a different way, because that's, my childhood is sort of formed that way. And so I'll throw a lot of this crazy shit out there and to get people to think about things differently. And then half the time people tell me I'm an idiot. And then half the time people are like, that's interesting, but you're still wrong. So, but it's fun. It's good to think about things from a different perspective, and you're not ultimately, not necessarily going to agree with another perspective, but it's good to have it out there. And I was the only one out there saying it with the baseball stuff, and nobody ever agreed with me. They told me I was an idiot, but interesting though. What's worse when you're in a game, taking a stimulant drug throughout the game, or using steroids during your workouts and going to the game clean with no actual substances affecting how alert or quick you are? You know what I mean? Yeah.
I know what you're saying. I find it interesting that we started talking sports and Chad Fisher shows up.
Yep.
Big sports buff. So good to have him.
I don't think you'll ever find anybody that agrees with me on that, but it's an interesting perspective, and I think it has merit, and it's just, whatever.
It has merit. It definitely has merit. I don't know. Anytime you're altering, if it's a temporary alteration that occurs at game time, that's definitely cheating. But if it's an ongoing alteration that also increases abilities, that's probably cheating too.
Yeah, using steroids for your workouts and snorting coke while you're in the middle of the game, what's worse? You know what I mean? Everybody back in the day was saying steroids are worse. I'm not so sure.
Maybe not do either. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they're both not good, but I don't think one is any worse than the other, is what I'm saying. They both should not be illegal. I don't think they ought to be able to use nicotine during the game. That's a drug and it's a stimulant. You can't use that in a game. That gives you an unfair advantage over other players who aren't using it.
Yeah.
It truly does.
We've got a bunch of people popping in here. Art Chemist is here, Comic Collector. Of course, Area 51 is still here. I can't imagine why. He must have a slow night, but we're glad to have him. Chad Fisher's here. Collecting Chaos is here. William Smallwood, I think I had before. So I think Donnie was here. Where'd he go?
Yeah, Mastodon was here. Yep.
Jackson Roy Kirk, Mastodon. You guys, just thank you so much. Agu Rhythm is in the house.
Agu.
You guys are so kind to bless us with your company. We really appreciate it. I think I never mix my steroids and cocaine together. We appreciate that. I don't think you're supposed to snort steroids, and you probably don't want to shoot cocaine either. So BTC Moon Guys in the house. Thank you everybody for being here. I think that we've kind of got a little bit off topic with all that, and we can schedule that for another show. Or a sports only show maybe, but if we talk about an original instance that say turns Peter Parker into Spider-Man, right, or David Banner into the Hulk, right, or Bruce Banner into the Hulk, I think that as long as it was a one-time thing, then I'm inclined to say that they have those superpowers ongoing from then on, and I'm good with it. But if someone has to take something often, and I'm thinking kind of Ra's al Ghul in the Lazarus Pit, right? So he has to go to the pit to keep regenerated, to heal up. Does that make him does that give him superpowers? I know we're talking about villains all of a sudden, but does that give him superpowers, or is that just him? Because anyone can use the pit, right?
Yep.
So I don't know that necessarily gives him superpowers. It puts him in a unique position to know where it is and to have access to it, but it doesn't really give him a superpower. In the same way, what about Green Lantern?
Well,
is Hal Jordan or any of the lanterns? Look, all right,
great
Roger's ready. Go ahead, Roger. Fire it off.
Bub, you read my mind. I was gonna bring that up. And this again, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm postulating this, right? But is the power the human here, or the ability to manipulate the energy that makes him superhuman, right? So that's what we have to ask ourselves, right? So is Green Lantern a super-powered human, or is he a human that manipulates a device that grants him powers?
Sort of like Doctor Strange situation.
Like Doctor Strange, correct.
But what about now? Forgive me for not knowing my DC lore as I should, but doesn't the ring in some way choose you?
Yes.
Like, don't you have to be? So there's some sort of cosmic or metaphysical test that needs to be passed in order to be granted the use of the powers of the ring.
That's true, but still, no matter who it chooses, they're still going to be human, or they're going to be the normal alien for that race. So depends how you look at it. So
yeah,
they have good character, perhaps.
Well, let me ask you this, Roger, because I don't know the DC lore very well either. I know virtually nothing about Green Lantern, honestly. But does he require a period of time to study and learn and master the mystic arts, so to speak, when it comes to the energies for Green Lantern, or is it just
yes, thinking of the Great American Hero? Like, right now,
you never found the instruction manual.
No, I don't know if it requires a certain mastery and training like the Doctor Strange situation.
Well, it does I think to a certain degree. I mean, the ring works on willpower. So, you have to have that. You can't be, some very depressed and downtrodden guy and be effective as a Green Lantern.
Okay.
So you need willpower, but you also need imagination, because the ring will create whatever the imagination of the wielder is ordering it to. So that's why you see things like boxing gloves and pincers and rocket and besides power blast, things like that. So in a sense, yes, you do need to have some kind of training, but not to the level I would say that Doctor Strange has to do. But yeah,
that's another situation where I would say Green Lantern has superpowers, but Hal Jordan doesn't. And then you guys can call me wrong, whatever. But yeah, I think when he has the ring and he's Green Lantern, he has superpowers. Yeah.
Well, for instance, as a juxtapose, you have Thor, right, who has inherent superpowers of being the god of thunder. And then he has the hammer. Now, other people, depending on what books and what timelines and what versions have been able to wield the hammer, and that gives them Thor-like powers. But Thor doesn't lose all his power when that occurs.
Well,
He still
Thor
has
has innate
power of
powers.
God.
I mean, Thor automatically, without the hammer, Thor has innate powers anyway.
Right.
He's got superhuman strength right off the bat anyway.
Yeah, stamina, endurance.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. So
Now,
here's a question. Here's a question for you guys. What about Daredevil?
Yeah, I feel like I argued this a couple weeks ago.
Before, yeah. I say yes, definitely.
You say
I
yes.
say no.
Oh boy.
I'll tell you no, and then Roger will tell us why yes, and he will win the argument. So that's why I'll go first. Let's get the losing argument out of the way. Okay?
Any fun, yes?
Daredevil is, you know, aside from his highly trained acrobatic abilities and martial arts and stamina and all his physical abilities, he has lost a sense which he has given his body the ability to have other senses be heightened. And it is not something that is uncommon in the human population for that to occur. And I spoke about it a couple weeks ago. You guys will remember it. Probably some people in the chat may not if they weren't there. But there's a documentary I watched about a blind guy who makes little clicks with his mouth, and he can get a full view in his mind of the environment around him, right down to stop signs and fire hydrants and people on bikes and dogs and barriers and everything. So he can make like sonar clicks, and he's developed this heightened sense of hearing that his brain has sort of switched gears and now can form a view using sort of sonar because he's lost his ability to see, or maybe he was born blind or whatever. I don't think that's superhuman. I think that happens normally in humans, maybe not to the highest degree all the time, but I think what Daredevil has is common to the human population to some degree. I don't see that anything that Daredevil has goes outside the realm of what generally occurs in humans on Earth. It's uncommon, sure, but I don't think it's unheard of, and so I don't think he has a superpower, although he has heightened senses and excellent abilities. I don't think he's a superpower. I don't think he has any superpowers. That's my argument.
The only thing I'll say about that, if that's the case, then Spider-Man has no superpowers either.
Well, he's super strong. He's got strength.
Well, it's true, but that's enhanced muscles. You're talking about enhanced senses.
Don't you think his strength goes above and beyond the normal human range of strength? Well, even the strongest guy on Earth can't. Huh?
And radar sense doesn't?
Well, I mean, but other humans have radar sense.
But nothing like that. I mean, my wife is legally blind, right? So I have some perspective here, right?
Yeah.
She can feel when the air is pushing up against her so that people are near her. You know what I mean? She's developed that ability to sense that air pressure up against her, right? But you have to be fairly close to do that. And it doesn't always work, okay? And when I told her about Daredevil's radar sense, she goes, "Oh, that's poppycock." You know, that is really, nobody has even close to anywhere sense like that. So I can, you know, that's anecdotal stuff. My wife is not the only blind person around, right? But but I, you know, again, we're talking about enhanced senses, enhanced muscles, enhanced intelligence, enhanced stamina. All that to me is superhuman because it is above the level of that humans can achieve naturally. And I would agree with all the rest of the stuff you said, DS. But the thing with the radar sense, I think, is what makes him superhuman.
Okay, and yeah.
Wait. What about what Mike is saying? Is that true? Is the radiation spill?
Yeah, that's what gave him his enhanced abilities. Yes.
So doesn't that help? Isn't that more in line with a spider bite or gamma rays or something like that, or cosmic rays for the Fantastic Four?
Yeah,
but more in line with that.
Yeah, that's true. That's just how he achieved that ability, right? But sometimes you can achieve abilities through other means that just enhance your abilities to a high human level. But regardless, this one is superhuman, you know, because
all right, well then let's move on. Let's move on to an argument that DS may be able to win.
Okay.
And we're gonna here Mike has brought another great point. Well, to be honest, Superman has no power on his own world because of the red sun. So let's hear it, DS. This is a point you've been trying to make all night.
All right, so Superman does not have any superpowers. That's my position, and I'll tell you why. It's summed up to the basis of it is essentially what Area 51 is saying. He, on his world, is just regular. He's just a regular dude. When you remove him from his world and put him on a different world with a different sun that has different type of energy and different gravity and different physics and stuff going on in the area on the planet that he moves to, his stuff is sort of becomes enhanced and higher than the people who normally evolved on that new planet that he's on. So he runs around Earth acting like he has superpowers when he really doesn't. It would be similar if all of a sudden we go hang out on the moon or someplace even smaller and we're setting, long jump records. Oh, I got superpowers. No, the moon just has less gravity. Come back to Earth, you're just regular again. So if Superman is from his planet, he's just normal. It's sort of akin to a bunch of ants hanging out doing their Monday No Faces chat in their anthill and on their little ant YouTube, right? And they can climb up and down the anthill and move pretty big stuff. They're pretty strong. And then Bub comes along and just stomps on the anthill and just kicks it. And does Bub have superpowers? No, he just lives in a different environment. But when you go to the ant world, he seems like now he's a massive giant with superpower strength. He's not. He's just come from the human YouTube world to the ant YouTube world. And now he seems like he has superpowers. But he really doesn't. It's the same with Superman. If we go to the moon, we can jump further. There may be other planets where we go and other places we go in the universe where our abilities now change because we're evolved from Earth and not from the new place we visit, and it will change our abilities in the new environment. But you can't judge Superman by Earth standards because he's not an Earthling.
Well, even
the planet he's from, and where he's from, he's just regular. So I don't think he has superpowers.
Even if he was an Earthling of some sort, he would still be an alien. I mean, it's kind of like saying, in other words, another species. Even if he's from Earth, he'd be another species. So it's like saying a cheetah versus a human. Well, the cheetah isn't a superhero or have superhuman abilities because they're not human at all.
True.
It doesn't count, you know.
Well, you throw a shark into a swimming pool, all of a sudden you got a superpower swimmer moving around with all the people. You know what I mean? If you take one being and move them to a new environment, the abilities change and they're not going to match up with the entities and the beings that are from that environment. So if you change the environment, if you go from Superman's planet to Earth, you now have your abilities have changed. But that happens with humans when we go to the moon. We can now jump much further and throw things much further. If they had a baseball game on the moon, you'd have 1,200-foot home runs. Okay, that's not superpowers. That's just you move to a new environment where the physics have changed what you're able to do in that environment. But when you go back to your regular environment, your root basis environment, you're just regular. So that's why I say Superman has no powers. Okay,
then what about Shazam?
Well, I don't know as much about him, but I think he was imbued with powers. He's a human who was imbued with powers, I believe, but I don't know too much about it. I'll let you and Roger maybe talk about Shazam. I don't know too much about Shazam.
Well, yeah, that's a different situation. I mean, he is actually a being that has been blessed by a pantheon of gods to have their abilities here on Earth.
But anyone, isn't that more of a Green Lantern situation?
Well, I was going to say exactly that. Now, you're right. It's the power is inherent in the gods bestowing it upon him when he says the word Shazam. But before that, he's very mortal, very human. So depending on your perspective, he could have no powers, or he could be a very powerful being when he says that word. But if something happens, if he loses the ability to speak, he's powerless.
And one more thing about Superman. One more thing about Superman is, and this is my knowledge of this is just from the movie. This is not comic canon or anything, although it might be. But I'm talking the old Christopher Reeve movies. When he finally decides that he wants to give up his superpowers on Earth and be with Lois Lane, he goes back to his what is the crystal? Yeah, so he goes back there and he has this machine that is I think he gets inside it. It's like a crystal elevator sort of machine thing. And he gets in there. And I think it uses the power from his home planet to sort of irradiate him and take away his powers. And I think that ties in that his powers are not superpowers. They're just related to him being from a certain place. And you can use the energies from that place to take the powers away. And if you remove what makes him from the other planet, from his home planet, he's just normal. He doesn't have any abilities. After you take away everything about where he's from, which that machine did, he then becomes just normal. So he doesn't have any superpowers. That's the argument for Superman.
Yeah, I think it's different when you're talking about alien races because they're only super, like you said, DS. I agree with you 100%, by the way, on this one. They're only super in the environment that they're in, right? So, like you said, if we to an ant, we are monsters and just super powerful gods.
Well, right? I didn't say that. I said Bub was.
Thank you for that. I was gonna say something. No, I didn't say everybody was. Only
me and Roger would never go stomping ant hills to prove how powerful we were. I was doing
power. It was given to me by the great ant god. Whatever.
The great ant god. Yeah, I agree. I mean, alien, like the Brood. They have no superpowers, right? But when they come to Earth, they're much more powerful than humans,
right?
Because of the innate abilities of they're adapted to the gravity and the different forces on their and however they grew up. So that makes them superhuman in this environment. But they, in and of themselves, they have the irregular abilities of their species.
Yeah, so that's a way of looking at it. I think me and Roger are on the same page with regard to the Superman type situation. Yeah, it's interesting. It's also interesting that Superman is the only one who his normal self is the costume also. So there's a lot of little weird things about Superman. He dresses up as Clark Kent and he's regular. That is his costume, as opposed to all the other superheroes. When they put on their costume, that makes them the superhero.
Yeah, I think Batman's like
Superman's a superhero initially. He has to put on the costume to disguise himself to be normal. There's a lot of weird things about Superman.
Yeah, most of it's just lazy DC writing, though. Like, if Superman is that heavy and that much more powerful, he's that much more dense on Earth from the sun and everything. How does he ever ride in an elevator? I mean, he must be. Of course, he's using his ability to fly, to float up, or whatever.
Yeah, I always wondered how Thor rode an elevator with his hammer too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How does Clark Kent keep his pants up when the belt, as soon as you tried to tighten it, would just snap? Every time he sneezes, all his clothes just fly off.
Well, he doesn't sneeze. He's immune to all terrestrial diseases.
Yeah.
Well, Ant-Man too. Ant-Man gets super small. But oxygen molecules are oxygen molecules, and if you shrink down the size of the hemoglobin, he's not going to get any oxygen. He's going to suffocate instantly. Because
that's what I say. What a bunch of crap!
That's
I'm starting to think we've been fed a bunch of lies from these comic books. What do you guys think?
Oh, really?
I love physics. I set aside physics when I get into comics because it's too fun. But when I watch sci-fi movies, bad physics annoy me. In comics, complete opposite. I love when they mess with the physics. And they will give you explanations as to why these physics laws can be broken, which they're super creative and fun and interesting, but they never fly, but they always try. I mean, you have to bend and break the rules of physics to have most of the stuff work. But they don't just do it willy-nilly. They'll give you explanations for it in comics that wouldn't really fly, but it's a creative way of explaining it, even if it's fake, and it makes it fun. So I totally love how they bend and break the rules of physics in comics. Not so in sci-fi movies. It annoys me when I watch movies like Gravity with Sandra Bullock and other stuff. But comics, they get a waiver. They can do whatever they want. It's all good.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. In sci-fi movies, it agitates me, to say the least, except for temporal displacements. I kind of don't mind that too much. Sometimes the paradox that gets created is kind of part of the fun. But But other than that, yeah, bad science and sci-fi does irk me a little bit because it can't be sci-fi and fantasy at the same time. You got to pick one. Can't be all this scientific stuff and then but how does it all work? Magic. You lost me.
Yeah, that's weak stuff.
Yeah.
I'll tell you though, with the Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts and the magic and stuff, that flies more with me because they're already outside the normal rules of physics. They're on alternate levels of reality and stuff. So that's totally believable. So that might be completely realistic. But when you have like stuff with the Hulk, that stuff doesn't seem to fly. But yeah, when it comes to magic, I'll buy it because it's already supernatural. Who knows? Maybe it is all accurate.
Right. Start from that premise and you can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we've done it again. We've wasted these fine folks' time. Roger, have you got anything coming up on your channel that you would like to waste people's time with?
Yeah, I'd like to waste people's time tomorrow because I think I'm going to be talking about the Comic Reader, which is a fanzine from the 70s and 80s. And I pulled mine out, and that's a really neat little fanzine. So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. So if you want to waste some time in some old fanzines, check out my channel tomorrow around 1 or 2.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like that.
Yeah, comic readers are cool. My only foray into the comic readers was when I was searching out every appearance of the Spider-Man's black costume before ASM 252. And so there's, I think, 7 or 8 magazines that had previews, and one of them was Comic Reader 85 or something like that. But I bought, the way I got the one I wanted was I bought a lot of like 14 comic readers.
Oh, wow.
I might as well check them out now that I got them. And they're super cool. Yeah, they're real cool. I love those things.
And they've been sold.
Yeah, I don't keep them.
I tell you, I've collected a few of the ad zines, which you don't see as many of.
Yeah.
And they're kind of fun to pick through too.
Yeah.
And see the old prices and the way that things were all handwritten and stuff. It's kind of I mean, nothing would come out like that now. It costs so much to have all handwritten. It should be
those were mimeographed, I think.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. Comic Reader and Comics Journal were both they're very similar, and they're very, very thick, and they're very thorough, and there's a lot of cool stuff in them. They're sort of like the more legit version of the Marvel Age. Marvel Age comic, 10 pages, and most of it was crap, and then there's a little bit of info and
Marvel Age was just a hype magazine for Marvel.
Yeah, but it had some cool interviews in it and some cool little things in it, but it wasn't really in depth like Comics Journal and Comic Reader.
I went all the way out to Wizard magazine. That was my favorite blend of games, movies, and comics. I thought that just went perfect. So
yeah, I never really got into the Wizards too much, but I would check them out here and there.
Good stuff. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. DS, you got anything you're going to try and waste people's time with between now and our next show?
Probably not. My press. I ordered a new press. That's exciting. So I'll show that off when I get it. And I've got some stuff at CGC that's starting to be scheduled for grading. Yeah, that's it. Nothing super exciting, but just some cool stuff going on here.
That's good. I can't wait to see your new press. I'm sure you got a one that I'll be happy with.
Well, I hope. I bought a new one, brand new, made in the USA. Wasn't cheap, but I didn't skimp on it, and so hopefully it is legit. But I didn't buy a used one. I didn't try to save money. I just bought a really good, made in America, brand new press. So hopefully I get it and it works without a hitch and there's no issues. But the one I have right now is one of those made in China, and I didn't want to spend a lot because I wasn't sure if it would work out, and it has, but I've sort of outgrown this press, which was a good beginner press, but I'm moving on to something a little more expensive, made in USA, and a little more legit. So hopefully it works out, but it's a different style too. I have the clamshell style, and it's one of these crap made in China ones, which, it's worked for me, but I'm moving on to a swing away, made in America swing away. So it's a different style and it's a higher quality and it's more expensive. So going to take a little bit getting used to, I'm sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We look forward to some videos on that. And of course, your Instagram too is always fun to follow as well. Everybody
Yeah,
check
you know, DS Comics PCH is my Instagram, and that's, you know, for lack of a better word, we'll just say I'm lazy, and Instagram makes it very easy for me to engage with the comic community. And YouTube, I do content occasionally, but mostly I do this show with you guys, and then I do Comic Core Golden Guys on Comic Core on Tuesday nights. You know, I'll tune into chats here and there and different stuff, but yeah, Instagram is just so easy to put stuff out there and interact with people. And honestly, most of the people I interact with on Instagram are people from the YouTube community anyway. So it's mostly the same people. It's just easier format for me, you know, being sort of a little more lazy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and the interaction, but you probably have I found my followers on Instagram go up much faster and harder. And there's a lot of really hardcore comic collectors that follow me and that I follow them that are not really into the YouTube stuff. Because I find YouTube to kind of be another hobby. It's attached to comics, but it's a different hobby, you know, spending time doing YouTube versus, you know, hunting and collecting and reading comics. So on Instagram, you get not just people who are into watching videos and into participating in chats, but you also get just some pure collectors, which is really nice too.
Yeah, and especially for Golden Age, there's not a lot of Golden Age on YouTube. You know, the best Golden Age on YouTube is the Golden Guys, which is a show I'm part of on Tuesday nights.
Oh, there you go.
The Golden Age collections on Instagram are mind-blowing, some of them out there. They're literally mind-blowing. They have like 9.6s of super rare Golden Age grails. It's just insane. The knowledge and the collections on Instagram for Golden Age. You know, the other stuff, like Silver Age and Bronze and Moderns, you can find it YouTube, and especially Moderns. YouTube is where I go for modern knowledge. For when I'm digging around, I'll see something like, oh, I saw this on so-and-so's channel. Let me get it. But for Golden Age, Instagram is a much better outlet for me to discover stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I enjoy it. I enjoy them both separately, but then, like you said, a lot of my interaction is people that are both on YouTube and Instagram. So that's been fun. And then every now and then you get like a random DM from a direct message from someone who is like an awesome collector that you've been following their collection. Like, I didn't even know that was a real person. Like, I just assumed it was some bot who kept throwing up these fire books all the time, you know, but then they'll message you and they'll say really great things like, hey, I really like the last 4 books you showed, or, you know, or I'm after this run. What are you after? And you're like, wow, this is, you know, I feel honored. This is a guy who's a collection. I feel like I'm nowhere near, not even in the same ballpark. And yet, you know, they appreciate some of the stuff I'm putting up there. So it's a different feeling. It's a different vibe. It's different, but it's just as enjoyable as this. So if you guys aren't on there, it took me a year to get DS on there. It took us 2 years for Roger to figure out how to use it, and he's still not quite sure. But we're get on there, play around with it, and have some fun, and show your collection off on there too, because it's a big community, bigger even than YouTube.
Oh yeah, much bigger.
So, all right, guys. Well, I don't have anything going on my channel other than this. Of course, hey, you guys excited? Next week, you know what we got to do, right?
Well, Halloween.
Yeah, man. Woo-hoo!
Oh, did you guys want a preview of a book I bought today?
Of course we do.
Sure. I like to do this at the end of shows as a reward to those who've stuck around, but also to show you guys anyway. So, this is a dealer. He lists stuff on auctions on eBay all the time, and he's a big dealer. He doesn't care when the auctions end. So this one ended Monday afternoon. Nobody's watching auctions on eBay on Monday afternoon, except this guy, because I'm off on Mondays. So a dirt cheap, super rare Golden Age book right there.
Wow.
Blue Bolt, Volume 2, number 11, 1942. It's technically a robot cover.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I see it. He's working the gears from inside the head.
Yeah. So it's just a really funky, cool, really rare book. And I've only seen a couple, and they're usually beat. And this one looks to be in nice condition too. So really happy to get this for cheap, because most people are working, and I am off scouting out eBay auctions on Monday afternoons. So yeah, really happy to get that one. That's super cool.
Nice. Is that one of those famous Dick Coles?
It's a Dick Cole story, and he's got a story in most of the Blue Bolts. I'm trying to remember who did the cover. I don't know who's the cover of the interior stories or art, but it's got a Dick Cole story in it. Yeah, that's in most of the Blue Bolts. There's a Dick Cole story.
There you go. Well, if anyone's hunting down some good old Dick Cole, you can't get it unless you're off on Mondays. That's what we find out.
Change your schedule.
Yeah, change your schedule. You're going to keep losing out the DS. Well, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that, of course. Big horror show next week, so everybody tune in. Pretty close to Halloween. It'll be our last show before Halloween, so we'll do our big horror extravaganza. I'm sure Roger will he's got something in the works where he's probably going to do some sort of show for himself on his channel, and DS may do something on his channel. That's fine. We'll have something of a topic, but it's probably just going to be mostly a parade of horror and why we love them. So look forward to that, and we'll do that next week. Sound good, guys?
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, good deal. Well, Metarog, you want to say your goodie buys?
Yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. I've missed you guys for 2 weeks, but I'll try to make as many as I can from now on. And everybody be blessed and be back.
Thank you, Roger. DS?
Just everybody do their homework, and that's it.
All right. And I'll remind everybody to read a comic, and of course, don't apologize. Roger, don't apologize for the glare. Bye-bye.